to the show. This is The Force Awakens. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show with the news, views, reviews, and interviews. Making news this time around. Technically, no news is good news. That's with Starfighter. No real big updates with that. But there is a big test for Starfighter coming up in March of next year, where Ryan Gosling, the star of Starfighter, one of the stars at least, will be starring in a movie called Hail Mary. It's a big sort of sci-fi sort of thing. The second trailer is dropped. The reason why it's a big test is because all eyes for his upcoming project Starfighter, which will be a year after, will be sort of under scrutiny because of how well that film goes, how well the story is put together, and even how good Ryan Gosling is. So that is making news. A little bit more about my thoughts a bit later in the show. Anyway, that's some news. To more news, The Mandalorian and Grogu is set to grace the covers. I don't know if you can actually get it anymore, but grace the covers of Empire magazine with an interview, up and coming movies, which of 2026, and one of them being Mandalorian Grogu. So there will be some details in an Empire magazine, whether you can get the actual paper version of it in your city. I don't know. Maybe it's just online. I've not bought one for many years due to not having a desire to buy them at this point and not having many magazine outlets where I live. But I'm sure they're still around. But Empire magazine, a great movie magazine, will be having Mandalorian and Grogu be a part of a spread that includes big releases of 2026 coming soon. Anyway, that is pretty much the news. Let's get into views. Views is my story ideas where I let you know that I accept this Star Wars story timeline for what it is from start to finish. It's there. It's to be liked or disliked, cringeworthy, emotional intensity, whatever. I accept the story. But my story idea centers around a bit of talk online between some of the Star Wars writers in the thoughts of a character who came from Rebels, was first seen as an animation, named Sabine Wren. No relation to Kylo Ren, which I thought would have been a great idea if it was spelt the same as a story idea. But that's another story idea for another time. But Sabine Wren, it was mainly in Ahsoka, the live action series, where we saw her real life character come to real life action. And she is sort of a Mandalorian warrior, a graffiti artist, sort of a bit of a rebel within her own sort of right. And there was a little bit of training her to be a Jedi in the Ahsoka series. And some people are saying that this was not a good idea, within the Star Wars writers, actual writers, some fans. Personally, I think it's important that the story of the universe, which is really Star Wars, in a whole sort of different understanding what the universe is, but it's we can relate to having universe ourselves. But I think the idea of her being a Jedi, is it a good idea? I think partially it is, but at the same time, it is, a story that is just coming from nowhere. I think personally, if it's not going to fruition, attempting to be a Jedi is a story in itself. That's my story idea. Now, even if the writers think it was a mistake, or fans are really pushing to say that it's a mistake, I think pushing to be a Jedi but just not getting there is actually a grey area in a good way. Like everything can't be so black and white, as Star Wars has become these days. It's not so good versus bad. It's in betweens, especially seen in the Andor series. But I think it's a good idea that, is pushing to be a Jedi. Ahsoka was actually training her, and just not eventuating, coming to reality, accepting her her being who she is, rather than the failure of who she is becoming, which is becoming a Jedi. And I think that is a good story idea. That's how I would end it. Whether there is some good storytelling in actually having her to be a Jedi, well, that would be a different story idea from my behalf. But let's talk, talk the angle of her not becoming a Jedi. Just coming to the point of realization. This is just not for me. I know I've done this and that to do whatever to become a Jedi, but it just wasn't for me. That is my story idea for this time around. Now, let's get into reviews. Reviews this week is something I hold very sacred. This is a sellable product. The way I got it created, I sort of ensured that it could be sellable, but for me to depart from this would be enormous. At Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, I got to meet and have a photo with an autograph with the original Lando Calrissian. That's Billy D. Williams right there. Billy D. Williams, the reflection, my goodness, is intense. But yeah, that's Billy D. Right there, look, that's better. Billy D. Williams, that's how he looked back in 1980. He looks a bit different now. Just still has that lovely voice. Still has that sort of suave, even as just a normal person. He signed this for me. This is an authenticated by Tops autograph. The way I sort of got it done, like you could sell it, but me meeting this person, having a photo with this person, getting an autograph, I hold very, very sacred. This does get a 10 out of 10 for me. Again, I don't rate everything I've got as 10 out of 10. There's lots of things I have that are just whatever, but still collectible. But this here, Billy D. Williams, the 1980s posing pic that is in this photo, signed by him at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, which was a great Star Wars Celebration. This here is a great thing to review. Anyway, 10 out of 10. That's mine. And anyway, so now let's get into interviews. Interviews is usually conducted by a friend of ours, Michael from Werribee South. But before I get in to that, I want to touch up on what I was sort of trying to bring up in the start of the show. I think, look, with Ryan Gosling being in this film, Hail Mary, I personally didn't get overwhelmed by the trailer. It looks good. It looks interesting. I've got a small feeling at this stage it's not going to hit the mark how people want it to be. They're starting to speculate how great this film is going to be. I think that's an indication of high expectation becomes lower. But it looks okay. I'm having a bit of difficulty personally, the look of the alien. But I think I think the regular audience is going to not really take on the look of the alien is to be a sort of a normal type of alien. I mean, yes, it's different. It's great. It's original, but I just think it's a little bit out there. But the relationship and the story and really how long this film is going to determine how successful this film is. To the other story that I had, Mandalorian and Grogu, I just think they need to start ramping up some advertising during Christmas to get this film a bit more excitable. And the next trailer or the next image or whatever we get from this needs to really sell to the Star Wars community that this is looking good. Yeah, that's a little bit of just touch up there. But really, this is the interviews. And who's interviewing me again today in the comment section is Michael from Werribee South, which is near Melbourne, Australia, just to let you know. Now, you can send in your comments via my YouTube channel anytime. I don't really have an Instagram or Twitter or X or whatever you want to say, or even TikTok to do all this type of stuff. I don't know if TikTok does that, but yeah, so just send in any of your comments or questions. I'm not Mr. Know-It-All. I'm just a regular Star Wars kid just rocking the joint. Anyway, so Michael asks, first off, did Luke have necessary experience to train a Jedi? Well, yes, technically he was, he became a Jedi Master unofficially, but he was officially, in an unofficial way, in a strange way to put it, at the end of episode 6, Return of the Jedi, he was a Jedi Master, not pronounced by anyone, but he took on Darth Vader, his dad, and brought, order back to the galaxy in a Jedi way, or in the name of good. So did Luke have the necessary experience to train a Jedi? Yes, is the answer to that. How the outcome to that is a different answer, but yes, he did have the necessary experience. He was at the top of his game. He was a black belt, in a funny way of putting it. Anyway, to the next question. Did Luke's sacrifice bring hope to the galaxy? Which sacrifice, I don't know what he's actually talking about, but let's talk about the sacrifice of defeating Darth Vader, which was his dad. Yes, that was up against the odds. How do you take on trying to kill your dad to bring hope and to become a Jedi Master? Is essentially in Return of the Jedi at the end of or that big test. It did bring hope. I'll say it brought hope, but there is stories of it didn't end there. So, the galaxy, as we see in 7, 8, 9, is still in a disorder many, many years after in this Star Wars storyline. It brought hope, but it also didn't complete everything. Anyway, we may see some more information in the new film Starfighter. Anyway, the next question, Werribee South man, Michael from Werribee South. Why did Luke almost harm his student? Well, he was sensing the dark side. I'm guessing he's talking about Kylo Ren or Ben Solo at that point. And I think he was just sensing the dark side, and he just lost himself, caught up in an emotional sort of thing, which is what a Jedi shouldn't do. Even though he was a Jedi Master, we can all fall victim. And so why did Luke almost harm his students? Because he was sensing the dark side in Ben Solo, who became Kylo Ren. Anyway, so the next question for Michael from Werribee South. Did Luke's emotional reaction cause Kylo Ren's fall? Well, when you read this question, did Luke's emotional reaction cause Kylo Ren's fall? The end of Kylo Ren wasn't really about Luke's hand. It really was a combined effort with Rey and Kylo Ren to realize who they meant to each other, and Kylo Ren's sacrifice in saving Rey at the end of episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So really, it's not about Luke. It was all about Rey and Kylo Ren coming together, and then Kylo Ren sacrificing himself to save Rey at the end of episode 9. Anyway, the next question, did Luke's choices lead to the rise of the First Order? Well, that's another opinionated type of question, but it sort of the First Order was really a part of the whole new so-called Empire, stormtroopers type of thing. And, Kylo Ren was at the head with Snoke at that point, before we knew what Snoke really was. Technically, it wasn't Snoke, it was somebody else, as we may know, which is, just to give it away, the Emperor. So really, he didn't choose to have the Force Order, but obviously being a force in his own right, so to speak, obviously there's always going to be people who oppose the good from the bad, and the good to the bad. It's just good and bad don't love each other. It's just a fact of life, and in Star Wars. So the final question for Michael from Werby South is Luke to blame for Kylo Ren's fall? I think the dominoes started to fall from Luke sensing the dark side, but I think Kylo Ren was something that fruitioned out of Ben Solo and was just sitting there all that time, and really no one is to blame. It just fruitioned from, you would say, a natural feeling from Kylo Ren and Luke sensing something that was wrong, and the dominoes really fell from there. That all happened in technically episode 8, which was The Last Jedi. We got to know bits and pieces, and realization then came to where the story ended in episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So anyway, I don't think Luke is to blame. I'll say that to answer that question. Anyway, that is the show for this time around. And until next time, my friends. Oh, please, before I say my usual, which I don't even just say this for the show, I say it in real life. Please subscribe to the channel. Like, press the notification button when you subscribe, because you'll get automatic, that I've just released a show, and put the notification bell on when you subscribe. If you like to subscribe, like and share the video. And until next time, my friends, keep rock